Are these answers too long? I haven't been on a lot of podcasts. Well, I suppose it's open-ended, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and we can edit as well.
Yeah.
When it comes out...
Casually thrown out. The fuck?
When it comes out, it'll just be you going, I don't.
Love you, Rom. Love you, Rom, love. And put that on a... Yeah. Hello there, I'm Ben Elton, and I'm very, very excited indeed because I am going to be on the Romesh Ranganathan show, and it doesn't get any better than that, pod-wise.
It's the Romesh Ranganathan show.
Oh, shut up, Romesh.
This episode is brought to you by Virgin Red. So, Virgin Red means go. That's the whole idea. And I'm telling you that because I am, by nature, someone who does not go. I'm world class at talking myself out of things. Someone says, let's go away for the weekend, and within 30 seconds, I've already talked myself out of it. So I stay home, thinking about all the things I want to be doing, which is why Virgin Red is, honestly, brilliant for people like me. Virgin Red offers epic rewards from the brands you love, and you earn Virgin points from doing things you're already doing. Your travel, your shopping, your day-to-day spending, and those points unlock trips away, hotel stays, live music, and experiences that become the story you're telling for years. Moments that become memories. All you have to do is go. Go somewhere you've been meaning to. Go do something you never knew you could. And once you're there, you remember exactly why you said yes. Even better, your Virgin points don't expire, so you can let them build up until something epic comes along. And it will. Ready to dive in? Become a member and start unlocking rewards that make life feel a little more epic. Okay, you ready? I'm going to do your intro now, Ben.
Okay.
This is quite difficult for somebody with a career like yours, but let's give it a go. My guest today is a multi-award-winning comedian, writer, novelist, director and lyricist. He charged onto the comedy scene in the 1980s with subversive stand-up and sparkly suits on Saturday Live and went on to help shape the landscape of British television, writing seminal sitcoms including The Young Ones, Blackadder, The Thin Blue Line and more recently Upstart Crow. He's also written a string of best-selling novels, including Popcorn and Dead Famous, and created the smash-hit jukebox musical We Will Rock You. His autobiography, What Have I Done, is out in paperback this week. It's the legendary, the peerless, the supreme, Ben Elton, everybody!
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming on. It is an honour to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
That's very nice because I can genuinely say I'm a fan and that's lovely. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, you have got a book out. This is it right here.
Yeah, that's the hardback. It's the paperback that's coming out.
Right.
People can still get that.
But the paperback, I assume, will still be massive.
It'll be a bit smaller than that, but it'll be a lot. It'll have the same number of words, which is a lot. I think it's about 160,000 words. It's longer
160,000?
Yeah, it's longer than any of my novels, that's for sure, yeah.
So, 160,000. Did you intend on it being this... Like, how did it come about that it's... I mean, obviously you've got a long career.
You know, when you sit down to write your memoir, you know, I intend to stretch it to 160 or indeed crush it, because I've got to say it's not all in there by any means. Right. I had no predictions as to the parameters of the tome when I began writing.
Did the publishers give you any guidelines?
Honest, I think they would have preferred it shorter because, you know, that is the modern world. They weren't saying there's anything they want to lose.
Yeah.
But just could you lose something? And I said, well, no, because it's my autobiography and I'm not going to cut it to size. I certainly cut anything if it's boring or, you know, banging on, but I'm not going to just take 50,000 words out simply because you want a shorter book. They were great about it. Can I just be clear?
Yeah.
That the people at Pan Macmillan have been absolutely wonderful.
Okay, but so this is not, you're not starting a beef now.
On the whole, they tended to push towards, you know, can it come down a bit? But we were all very happy.
How were you with taking notes?
I'm always good with notes.
Are you?
I never met a note that I didn't appreciate on second reading. The thing about when you get notes, you know, you always fuck. You know, I mean, come on, you don't, you know. And, you know, do not reply at that point. How dare you? I mean, you've basically torn the heart and soul out of my knob gag. What is left? What is left? You don't write that email immediately. You've got to sit on those notes for a day, read them again, and they're nothing like as bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't read reviews because that's all that for a start by its very nature. If I could read them before I was publishing or before I was on the stage, then maybe they may be of some use to me. But they're not of any use once they're over. And you say, oh, you might learn something if you know. I mean, I have enough critics in my, not least my wife, but people I work with, and I listen. I'm good with notes.
How long have you not read reviews for?
Since A Silly Cow in 1990, which was a play I wrote.
Thought you forgot the reviewer.
I know. Well, it was a play sort of about a reviewer. It was a play based on a cause célèbre at the time. There was a writer called Nina Mishkov who'd written a scathing critique of an actress and saying she couldn't act, and the actress basically, went for something we all dream of doing. The actress went for her, and I think she tried to sue. I mean, she said, you can't say I can't act. You can say I'm this, that, and the other. And I'd at the time already, had a fair few slaggings, and I used to think, if I was a baker, and a bunch of anonymous, bread eaters in newspapers published goes saying this isn't even bread. This, I mean, if it had been bread, I could have, but because I've had that, this is simply not funny. This is simply not a play. I was interested in this actress saying, you can't say I can't act. I've been in the RSC. I've done this, that, and the other. I mean, it's just not fair. And now 2 million people have read it. Anyway, I wrote a play adjacent to that story for Dawn French, because Dawn which was very lovely, had asked me to think about writing something for her. And it was a whodunit about a great subject, which is artists trying to get their revenge on critics, which is, I'm certainly not the first person to plumb that depth. I wrote the play, and the reason I don't remember the name of the actress is probably because the producer went litigation crazy and said, this is obviously the Mishkov story. Right. And for instance, you've made Dawn's character a lesbian for various reasons. Well, she might say I'm not a lesbian, which I don't think she is a lesbian, so they made me push it further and further away from the source material, which I'm perfectly happy to do because it wasn't documentary. I mean, I was inspired to write the play. That was all. So that's why I left the source material well behind. It was only an article I'd read in the paper anyway. Anyway, it got absolutely slacked. And critics, fine, whatever they want to say, free world, etc., and that's fine. But the problem is you shouldn't read reviews, because if you read a review that says this novel is 99% novel writing perfection, 99% of this probably better than any other novelist has ever written, all you're thinking, of course, is what 1%. The fuck about the other 1%? So all power to them. They do their thing. We do ours, and but I very much don't actually read it. I get my promoter, producer, bloke called Phil McIntyre, you'll be aware, oh, it's not been good, Ben, don't read him. Well, I wasn't going to know. Well, don't, But that's but you always hear, and some well-meaning friend will say, I was outraged when they said you were a hypocritical piece of shit. I'm going to write. And of course, my day had been great up until that point. I'm sure you have the same. No, well, you probably never had a bad review, but
I don't think I've ever had a great one.
Exactly, we all feel it, and it's a thing, and it's best not. The only advice I can give is it's slightly the only way you can mitigate a bad review. It's always horrible. It affects your business. That's what I mean about the baker selling bread. It's not even bread. You're basically, someone is saying, don't go and see this. You'll hate it. And I'm thinking, as every artist has ever thought, but everyone else seemed to enjoy it. I mean, didn't you hear the laughter? Yeah. All that goes on and on and on and on. And the only way you can make that slightly better is not to have actually read the thing, because the phrases themselves, and you can ask any actor, they can remember the bloody verbatim. They can't remember their lines, but they can remember the slang.
Yeah, I remember quotes. Quotes.
Exactly.
Yeah, awful. Now, we've got you a gift. There's 2 gifts, actually. And I was about to open it for you. Okay. There you go. You're capable of doing that yourself, aren't you?
Bag. They're not wrapped, are they? No. Oh, 2 gifts. Yeah. All right.
Now, that is a fidget pen.
Yeah.
It's for writing if you're distracted.
It might fall apart.
I'm not. Am I supposed to get it out?
No, it's here.
Oh, you got. Yeah.
Now, Georgie on the team has actually experimented this for you, and that's it as a dog.
Oh, I see you. Oh, what fun! So, no, actually, that's great fun.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm presuming it on the on the cover, there's an actual pen. Doesn't really give any sense of its potential, does it? But you can break it up. I presume that there's a very, very small inkwell. I mean, basically, only the last section, one would presume, has a little plastic tube of ink in it. So it'll probably run out quite quickly, but you can still play with it. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we were hoping you weren't going to find the shortcomings of it so quickly.
Yeah. What's the issue? Yeah, the issue, I mean, I presume that...
Yeah, I mean, after what you said about critics, you've really gone in on this pen.
No, they've every right. I'm not, whatever.
It seems like you like it.
And is it a book? Is it a blank paper
It's a notebook,
book?
yeah.
It's a blank paper book. Well, that's delightful of you. Thank you.
No worries.
Honestly...
You seem so underwhelmed, I can't quite believe it. Just be honest.
At 66... This is a present that people give, like oh, you go in those lovely stationery shops, Moleskine, and you get them in your stocking or whatever, over the year, and then they like a podcast, you might get given one on a podcast, and I mean, obviously, thank you, but I don't need a load of blank pages. I've stared at them enough, and I've got. My wife's very, very eco-conscious, as am I, but she's much more so.
Sure.
We have to rinse our cling film, we do. God knows how much water we're using. I don't want to quote but we do. We rinse them and we hang them out. Our kitchen looks like an explosion in a condom factory. Bit of material there. But anyway, she won't let me throw anything out. So we've got millions of empty notebooks, and a lot of them, funnily enough, have the beginnings of a story by not by me, but one of my children.
Right.
Because, kids, they do that. I'm going to write a story, and they get like 4
notebook.
lines in, and then they draw a little picture, and then they fuck off, and that's the end of that. So we've got a lot of books of just like this, except with a little bit going on the first page. We can't throw that away. Look, she did that or whatever. But anyway, not throwing all the other pages away. So look,
sorry, I guess.
I'm travelling. It's a very kind present.
Sure.
I know there'll be somebody. Actually, would anybody like this? No.
So not only do you not want it, you can't believe the idea of anyone else wanting it either.
I bet a lot of people have got a lot of blank, lovely books.
I've got loads.
Yeah. Lovely books. They're lovely. I wrote a line in my play Popcorn years ago where the psycho killer's talking about shooting up a shop, and it was a Smith's or something. And I love stationery, she says, and it's true. We all love stationery. Everyone loves a stationery shop, so I can go in and feel them in the shop, and then not buy one. But look, thank you. I really hope this doesn't sound churlish.
No, it's great. No, it's great. It's great. Yeah. You could have dismissed it quickly, but if anything, it feels like we're giving you material. Now, if you can bring yourself to. Tell us about your beginnings, because obviously you've had an incredible career. What's kind of your route into writing and comedy?
Well, I didn't have any idea in my very early years. So I really had a couple of epiphanies that changed the course of my life. I probably would have ended up where I am. Maybe, obviously I've been very fortunate to have quite a degree of success. The first inkling was when I was 10. At the school there was an announcement that the local little amateur theatre group called the Curtain Raisers were putting on Peter Pan, and they were appealing for lost boys. And I was very excited, and said to my mum, I want to audition for that. And she said, that'd be great, you should. And I then forgot about it. But fortunately, she reminded me on the Saturday morning. I went to the audition. I didn't get John. I got understudy John. He's the one with the top hat and the glasses in Peter Pan. But I got Slightly Soiled. I mean, that's the name of a part, not that I was overexcited at the prospect of it. I've never said that before. It sounds like an old joke, but I got the role of Slightly Soiled, and I absolutely, as my gran said, she's from Cheshire, oh, you've got the bug, Benji, you've got the bug, because she was also big in amateur drama. In the 20s and 30s, she had a lovely voice, and she was the lead soprano of the local Gilbert and Sullivan Society back before the Second World War. So she knew about having the bug. She loved theatre. And I thought I wanted to be an actor, and I could think of nothing more than being an actor from that moment on. It was only 3 nights in Godalming. It was Onslow Village, Borough Hall. But it felt like the West End, as it does to any kid getting it, like every soccer match feels like Wembley, if that's what you're into. And then, so I wanted to be an actor, and I started getting involved in Dram. I did The Artful Dodger a couple of times in Oliver. And then a number of... Firstly, I was watching lots of telly and falling in love with Morecambe and Wise and Two Ronnies and thinking about where are those jokes coming from. I was very aware of writers right from the start. I've always, kind of seen the credits and yeah, I knew absolutely. And from the age of 13 or 14, I knew that I wanted to be a comic writer. I wanted to write comedy. I had no real ambitions to perform. At the time, no ambitions to direct until I saw a few directors fucking up my stuff. And then so all writers feel that. All writers. Richard Curtis eventually got round the cameras and I'll do it now. I think so yeah.
But then you also are a phenomenal stand-up. And, you haven't mentioned that as part of your ambition at all. But for a lot of comics, your stand-up was so ahead of its time. And actually, if you go back and watch your stand-up now, the pacing of it, the speed at which you deliver punchlines, what you're talking about, the social commentary, it's aged so incredibly. You became an unbelievable stand-up and a big influence to a lot of stand-ups. But that wasn't part of your... So how did that come about that you ended up doing that?
Yeah, it really wasn't. I had no... thought of becoming a stand-up comedian. As I say, I've been in a double act in amateur music halls, in church halls in Surrey, but that was not... I wanted to be a playwright, and when I went to university, I wrote plays, and I didn't put myself in them. I mean, obviously, I have a healthy ego, but it's not one that is about me being seen. I mean, as you can see, I've not made an enormous effort, despite the fact that the instructions were to come camera ready. So this is me camera ready.
You look great, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But
if this is your camera ready, that's fine.
It's not the result of any great effort. My ego is not based in personally showing off. Obviously, I love people that love what I've done, but it's different ego. So no, I had no idea of not even wanting to be an actor. I rarely put myself in my plays at university. I must have put 15 plays on at university, my original stuff, always directing other students. And when I left university, I was already very aware of what Rick and Aid were doing, Rick Mayall and Aid Edmondson, because very fortunately, sometimes stars, didn't quite align because they were 2 years above me. And I was very close to Rick at university for a year. I didn't know Aid hardly at all. We became very, very close soon after. But anyway, I was aware of what they were doing in London. There was this thing, alternative comedy going on, and Rick had already said, "Come and write me some fucking gags, Farty." And he was, I was very happy to, I was writing a bit of stuff in and around Rick, and I wanted to make a living doing comedy, and I also wanted somehow to advertise my wares. So yeah, the obvious answer was I can see what Rick and Aid are doing, and a lot of far less competent comedians in the Comedy Store and the comic strip, and I could do that. And I had this thought, I mean, one thing's for sure, I think I could do better material than almost any of them. I was arrogant enough to think I've got better gear and I can write it tonight. But performance-wise, I had no real idea of who I was.
Right.
But I was lucky, Rick got me an audition at the Comic Strip, which was the high end of the two alternative comedy clubs. There was no circuit. There was the Comedy Store, which was a bear pit, a horrendous, just a battleground, very unpleasant. And then there was the people who were good at the Comedy Store who'd all left en masse to do the Comic Strip, which was a much, much, much better. The audience were there because, hey, this is the exciting scene. These are the new wave of comedians, rather than the audience were there to get a late night pint and get their rocks off shouting at some poor diminutive student on stage. But I got an audition at the Comic Strip because I knew Rick. And at my first show, I did 2 character pieces. Say my first show, my audition, and I did an impression of Ronald Reagan with jokes about Grecian 2000, which was a greying, and something about, destroying democracy, the Greeks and him. And anyway, I can't quite remember, but I made a link between a hair dye and democracy via Greeks. So anyway, that was the Reagan sketch. Died beyond died. So there I was 4 or 5 minutes into my big break and that was death. But I had a second bit. So I stuck a sort of little pillow up my jumper, put on a bright blazer, and did what now we would perhaps question it, but I did the fat northern comedian talking about his wife. Now we'd think twice about the terms we use and like categorizing, but nonetheless, there were a lot of fat northern comedians talking about their wife on a show called and some of them were great. Some of them were brilliant artists, but there was an awful lot of my wife's so fat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, you should see her. And I did a kind of Bernard Manning pastiche, which didn't really have any jokes in it. It was just a rant about how fat my wife was, but I'm fat anyway. Yeah, and that went.
It sounds good, man.
It was a clear. I mean, the audience understood it as a satire on sexism. Yeah, which I did quite a lot of, and I could be pretty funny at. I then slightly queered my pitch by ending with a sexism in comedy, knock it on the head, or the likes, because I'd only just graduated, and students can be terribly self-important, and I'm sure I fell into that pit somewhat. Got another gig at the comic strip, and then I had to beard the lion and take on a Comedy Store, because there was no future for me at the comic strip. They had their own. There was Rick and Aid, Pete and Nige, Jenny and Dawn, and Alexi and Arnold Brown. So that was them, and I got a guest spot just because somebody was away. That was it. So I had to go on my own and take it on, and I did well. But very quickly I dropped character work, became my own character, which was a shoutier, more aggressive version of who I was. I'm not remotely aggressive. I've never been in a fight, ever. I'm very proud of that, But the Comedy Store was a terrible place to play. Audiences was gong shows. They could shout. It was always lads.
They've still got the gong shows.
Yeah, they do the odd gong show. Yeah. This was a gong show. Yeah. That was it. And it was... And I very quickly became compere because I was quite good at it. And as I say, I had the material and I could write more of it all the time.
So did material come easily to you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, writing comes easily to me. It isn't always, I'm sure, there'll be your listeners, well, perhaps we took a bit more. I did make a lot of effort, but I find it's something that I was, people say, are you driven? I say, no, I'm inspired. I'm inspired to write. I'm not driven to write. I'm inspired to write because I've got some ideas that are tumbling out. I'm not as fast as I used to be. When you're young, it's all exciting. Every idea's a winner, and you're just bashing it down and just churning it out. Yeah, I mean, I was a jobbing writer. I did stuff for Rick. I did stuff for Pete and Nige. I was satirical. I mean, I dissected where I did routines about taking as facts like you can't advertise tampons on the telly, which you didn't used to be able to do, which is just kind of insane. That we literally lived in a world where menstruation was a secret, was something. They even called tampons secrets and whispers, and gave them word like and this is clearly corrosive sexism and patriarchal beyond belief, and I knew how to skew it. I said, what would it be like if men menstruated? Well, we'd be boasting about it down the pub, wouldn't we? Fuck me, I was bleeding last night, fainted, gallons, mate, gallons, yeah, I did a big long routine about it, and some of your listeners, if they know my work, will know it. But it's an example of a lot of the stuff I did, which was to take a little bit of politics, which became a sort of catchphrase, and use it to create actual comedy, not comedy that you just agreed with, but comedy that made you laugh, and you could even laugh even if you didn't agree with it, and that was obviously the aim. So I became a stand-up comic, but it was never my ambition, and for many years I hated it. I hated doing it. Yeah, it's hard. You're putting yourself on the line, and you've got to. I never died. I mean, I've never had the experience of really fucking up on stage again, because my material, I didn't improvise on stage. I mean, a lot of comics, they think the way, and maybe they're right for them, is to go on and maybe they've got a couple of ideas and they just busk with it. No, I work really hard at home.
So everything you said was heavily scripted? Heavily
scripted. Now, if you have done that work, and frankly, most comics do, it's a myth. Robin Williams used to come down a Comedy Store, and, obviously a truly great stand-up. But the first time you see it, you think, my God, I mean, he's literally taking this woman's handbag. He wouldn't do that now, but he's doing, and it's like as if he's literally making it up as he goes along. And of course, then you see him the next time, and he's not. He might be in a bit of a different order, and there might be a few new things, but basically, he's just got a shed load of shtick. And Billy Connolly, my greatest comic, my greatest British comic in my lifetime. You know, again, he appears to be, he's laughing it through. It's occurring to him. Yeah. Of course, it isn't. He's got an 80-date tour. I used to say, people say to me, I loved the show. I came again. It was just the same stuff again. Yeah, because obviously, I'm going to write 2 hours of brand new, gag-packed, then maybe I could do a new show every night. But if I'm going to give you honed material. So, yeah, I work incredibly hard on my stand-up material. Always did. Learn it. Very boring job. Shouting at hedges as you walk along, and then you can improvise from strength. If you've got a routine and you know where you're going, then often, oh my goodness, the muse touches you and you come up with something new on stage, and that's that's sublime. I mean, Woody Allen spoke for all comic writers when he said, when I write a joke, I'm hearing it for the first time. Because you really don't know where it comes from. When the rubber hits the road, Keith Richards, everyone talks about songwriting. You don't write songs, you just pluck them from the air, man. But that is kind of how creation is. If you could plan it, then you don't really know where the perfect thing comes from until it arrives. Normally for me, that's at home with a computer or a pen, lovely blank book I could be trying to fill, and sometimes it's on stage.
But I do want to talk to you about Blackadder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I recently I did a show called Last One Laughing, and they do this thing. I don't know if you've ever had this, where they, for the social media team, they basically, it's a really reductive way of doing things. What they do is they go, we're going to do a face-off, and then they name 2 sitcoms. You've got to choose your favourite one, and then it's like a knockout tournament. It's a really horrible way of they just do it for a social media clip. Anyway, Blackadder appeared, and then it trumped every sitcom that they named after that for me, because I think...
Did they name the young ones The Thin Blue Line and Upstart Crow?
Yeah, I asked them to, and I dismissed all of those.
No, okay.
No, but for me, Blackadder is... If not it's in the conversation for best ever sitcom. It's incredible. First of all, it's so relentlessly funny. You sort of think about even the journey from the first series to the second series. It's so different, but still funny in different ways. I mean, it's when you talk about the rigors of writing, you can see that, you can tell that a lot of work has gone into that. What was kind of your journey with that show?
Well, you say the journey from the first to the second. That was it, except it wasn't a journey, it was an arrival.
Yeah.
And you said, they were both funny, but there you're wrong, of course, because the first one wasn't funny. That's probably pitching it too hard, and I apologise to Richard and Rowan, who wrote it. But, The Blackadder, which was the first series of what became the Blackadder sort of thing, was written by Richard and Rowan. It wasn't done in the studio, it wasn't a studio sitcom, and it was done on film. And I don't think I'm giving away any secrets when I say it was what they call a curate's egg, good in parts. Richard and Rowan definitely thought that, because Rowan dropped out as writer. As far as I know, I don't think he's written anything else since, and I'm not sure he'd written anything before that. So Blackadder 2 was a complete reinvention. And really, I sort of wanted to have a different name, and it did, kind of, because it was no longer The Blackadder. It was Blackadder, and that was his name, whereas The Blackadder was a nickname. But I was very, very fortunate in that after The Blackadder had been deemed a curate's egg by all the people who were in on it, we need to think hard about this now. So there's Richard. Now, if that had been me, I'd have said, yeah, thank God, that weight of not funny writing is off my back. I'm going to do it on my own. I would unquestionably have thought, right, I can handle this. To my immense good fortune and life-changing good fortune, Richard said, no, I don't want to write it on my own. I'm interested in Ben. And Richard came to me, and he came to me because he loved the young ones. I didn't know Richard. He was one of the Oxbridge, gang. That was a sort of separate world, the not the 9 o'clock news world, And he came to me, and we just hit it off as friends immediately. So when the Blackadder sort of job of co-writing the Blackadder came open because Rowan dropped out, Richard asked me. And of course, it was life-changing for me and it was life-changing for everyone because my element was undoubtedly significant. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I didn't bring something to it. Between Richard and I, we agreed on a radical reinvention, and that was that we should go into the studio for a start. Rowan's one of the world's great performers, live performers. His Edinburgh shows were legendary. I mean, he doesn't like it. He's somewhat antisocial's the wrong word, but he keeps a distance, you know. I think it's well known. He doesn't enjoy performing, I don't think, very much, but he's brilliant at it. Let's get in the studio. Let's get laughter. Let's do what we do very well in Britain, which is do a studio-based, community-based sitcom with an ensemble of great actors playing to a live audience. So that was a big change. But by far the bigger change was let's change the characters. And I was very clear on that from day one, which is that, you know, Rowan's playing an idiot in the Blackadder, the first series. Oh, I don't really know what's going on. And, you know, I've said it in my book, and Rose read it and enjoyed the book very much. I enjoyed your book. I didn't offer a quote. But anyway, as I know your publishers hoped I would. But then he doesn't, you know, you're not going to get that from Rowe. But he's read what I wrote, which is that, you know, whisper it not. I don't think Rowan's idiot characters are as funny as his superciliously superior characters are. I mean, of course, Mr. Bean is a colossal global success, and I love it, but I principally love it for its nihilism, for its wickedness, for the fact that Mr. Bean is not cuddly. Mr. Bean is vicious and can be spiteful and scheming, and that side of it I love. But I thought Rowan's Blackadder character just isn't funny, and nor's Baldrick's. I mean, he's the sort of, you know, the scheming one. Let's swap it. So I don't know whether Richard or I, but we both agreed immediately on this big change, which was to make Baldrick the idiot and Rowan the scheming one, the clever one. Because, I mean, Rowan being effortlessly superior, come in, you know, is peerless. And so that was without doubt the most significant shift. We didn't do such a big change with the character of Percy, but it sparked a collaboration between Richard and I, which we only ever done it once, but, you know, it was a beautiful, beautiful collaboration and a beautiful friendship. And when people ask us who wrote what, we literally have no idea. We really do. There's this sort of myth that, you know, I did all the rude stuff and he did all the cute stuff. Complete myth, you know. I mean, I do tend a bit more towards the knob gag and he tends a bit more towards the cute. But, you know, I can write a sweet little upturned nose joke and he can write a turnip-shaped gonad or a gonad-shaped turnip gag. So we are ambidextrous, is that the word, in terms of cute and rude? One of the luckiest days of my life was the day Richard had the generosity, which is, I don't think I would have had the creative generosity to say, I don't want to do this on my own. And that's why I got to co-write the Blackadder.
One of the things that about that is I just can't imagine that happening now. That you took it so far from the original, right? You know, that switching the characters, all of that. It's such a radical change. Was there resistance to that, or were they happy to just let you do whatever you wanted?
Well, there's a sort of quite a good story about that. Most people don't know this, although those of them who've read my book will know, that Blackadder was actually cancelled after the first series. What happened was the first series, as discussed, was considered, you know, lots of strengths, some weaknesses, but it cost an awful lot. John Lloyd, the producer, brilliant man, brilliant comic man, another great colleague over the years. John Lloyd famously said Blackadder 1 looked $1 million. Unfortunately, it cost $2 million. That was his joke. And it we didn't work in dollars, and I think it probably was about, you know, 100,000 quid. But it basically it cost too much. It cost a lot, and it didn't deliver. It was the big investment in Rowan Atkinson, the standout star of Not 9 O'Clock News. Sorry, Mel, Griff, and Pamela. But they all became stars. But Rowe was the man. And the investment hadn't paid off. But they decided to go with it again. Then there was that old enemy of creativity, regime change. How often, I'm sure it's happened in your career, God knows it's happened to me, you're in development, it's all going well, the boss changes and he just or she just chucks everything out, because if they go on with it, the previous person gets the credit. Well, that was the previous person's project. And if they go on with it and it fails, then they get the blame. So I've had really good, promising stuff just killed by the simple fact that the new boss doesn't want the old boss's promising stuff. Anyway, so regime came in. Michael Grade came over as controller of BBC One. And the first thing he did was looked at his comedy budget and he thought, oh, you spent that much on that show, it didn't really work. And he cancelled us. And I got a letter through the post. In fact, Richard, who was much more in the loop than I was even then, now, of course, the Pope takes his phone calls and, Bono asks to bring him tea in the morning. But even in those days, Richard, before Four Weddings, before Comic Relief, before his wonderful work in so much in global famine, even then, he was so well connected, As Phil McIntyre said, you don't get to be the first Australian to be head boy of Arrow without something about you. He knows what he's doing. And he came to me on our last edit session. We were just putting in all the scripts. We're about to send all the scripts in. Everything had been written. He said, they've cancelled it. I said, what? He said, I'm just telling you, they've cancelled it. They're not going to do it. We'll get paid for the scripts, but they're not going to use them. And lo and behold, next day in the post was quick in those days, I got my letter from John Howard Davis, head of entertainment. Michael Grade has cancelled the Blackadder, and I regret to say, not just for this means you don't hold out hope. Yeah. It's over. Now I still have that letter framed in my lavatory, I have a number of lavatories. I don't want you to think I've only got one loo.
No, nobody assumed that you only had one.
I move it around. I judge the measure of a man's success by how many flushable loos he's got. You can't count caravans. Then we went into overdrive. I had no influence, but Rowan's agent, Richard Armitage, had a lot of influence. And John Lloyd had some influence. He'd produced Not the 9 o'clock news, and they went to Michael Grade and they said, look, everything you don't want, we've already chucked out. This is a new show. It's got a similar title, Blackadder 2, but it's in the studio. It'll cost half as much. It'll be 5 times as good. Just look at the scripts, etc. And to his immense credit, he reversed his decision, which was a huge thing to do. Now, since then, Michael has kind of convinced himself and rather dined out on the story that there never was a cancellation. He simply rung us young punks up and said, now look here, what you need to do is put this in the studio. You need to make Blackadder the clever one, and Baldrick the fool. And basically, so, bless him, he's rather dined out on the idea that he sort of forced our young punkish talents, wrangled us into line, and that's why the adder was such a success. Complete bullshit. There was no doubt. Michael Grade came in after the whole series was written, where he could gain enormous credit. More credit, in my opinion, is that he reversed his decision. That's a huge thing for a boss to do. To come in, say, right, well, I don't want that, and chuck it out. And the budget was reallocated. So when he brought it back, he had to take budget from the following year. So it was a huge reverse ferret, as they now say in politics. And that takes a big, brave, bold decision because, of course, it made him look like a flake, We'd gone in and said, oh, please, can you let us do it, really? And he'd go, all right, then you can. Had it not worked as well as it had, he would have looked such a fool. So I think, we owe him so much, but not remotely for the reasons he's been saying for the last 40 years. Good on Michael Grade, a huge figure in the business, but that's the real story of the Blackadder.
So you mentioned young ones. Of the sitcoms that you've written, what's the one you're most proud of then?
Well, up until quite recently, I always used to say, none of them and all of them. I don't go around really being proud of my work. I'm proud of the fact that I did my best. And I don't look back. I never watch anything that I've done. I never read anything that I've done. It's not out of some kind of, it's all dead history to me. It's just not interesting. I'm interested in the next thing. And if I do happen to catch a bit of an adder or young ones on a plane or something, all I can think of is the stuff that I was furious about at the time. It never dies. They never should have cut that joke. That edit's awful or whatever. Or we could have done better. And so I don't think about my work. And I know that every single project I ever I did my best at, and I always thought at the time it was my very best work. And so I genuinely never had an answer to that, and it was always a rather boring, perhaps pious-sounding one, which is I'm proud of them all. But now I have an answer, and that is Upstart Crow, because, that was written in adversity, and it was a very hard write. It's a hugely, though I say it myself, hugely researched piece. Takes an awful lot of sort of digging into Shakespeare. And I was coming from a position of some considerable weakness in as much as I'd had a big failure with a show I'm very proud of, and as proud of as The Young Ones, which is a show called The Right Way, which starred David Haig, which was somehow deemed to be an insult to comedy. And, I was really hauled over they had a discussion on Newsnight. Why is Ben Elton so shit these days?
How did that feel to be at the centre of all that?
Not great. I tried to hide a bit. Vice, is it Vice? One of the early websites, they did a roundup of reviews, which I didn't see the reviews, but I was told about the headline: "Should Ben Elton be put on suicide watch?" So it was pretty heavy. I happened to, because somebody told me the Guardian, Ben Elton must never be allowed to make television. Look, the piece maybe it wasn't good, although I thought it was funny. I still do, but it was a very traditional studio-based sitcom about a health and safety worker who was, overly officious, and always wore his high vis to bed and that sort of thing. And anyway, it had been viewed as like, the last nail in the coffin of a sadly compromised 80s lefty who's revealed himself as, a talent, a sad act. That was kind of me done, which certainly for TV and things, which I don't think it's out of part. I mean, I was still selling novels and things, but yeah, it was pretty grim in terms of a general presumption that I was a majorly busted flush and probably one who'd somehow sold out everything he ever believed in the first place. I'm very good with adversity. Oh God, fuck, that's horrible. And then you get over it. And as I say, I'm very lucky to be happy in general.
Well, I mean, it's fortunate that you're able to do that because it's horrific.
And you've got to pick yourself up and dust yourself down, etc. And then I got this opportunity, which I never expected. I thought, well, that's me for sitcom forever. But Shane Allen and another one like Richard, like many people in my life, I owe an immense debt to. Shane Allen was head of comedy at the BBC at the time, and he said, I've got something I want to talk to you about. And I couldn't believe it because I really was pronounced, dead. He said the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death's coming up. All the other BBC departments are doing something on Shakespeare except light entertainment, or that's called comedy. He said, we should do something. And I think, had a history, a bit erudite, but with lots of knob gags, you're the man, in a way. He said, I'm not commissioning you, but do you have any thoughts? He said, I had an idea. You might like to write a cod Shakespeare play. We could do a one-off, like a newly discovered Shakespeare play. So, but I thought, no, a sitcom about Shakespeare's life. I had a lot of reasons for that. I thought he was the perfect, lower middle class Englishman pushing against the posh boys. The more I read about Shakespeare, the more he reminded me of Captain Mannering. You would think not. How would that be? But I can explain it. Basil Fawlty, the traditional British sitcom hero who is clever and can see what he ought to be, and it doesn't get it because of all the society, class prejudice, etc., etc. Shakespeare. It's called Upstart Crow because that is the only known review of Shakespeare that has survived, which is this upstart crow dressing himself in the feathers of a poet and a gentleman. They resented him and his talent enormously. And I thought, that's a great sitcom, and he was a commuter, Stratford, London, Stratford, lots there. He lived with his parents-in-law, oh my God, etc. So I said we should make a sitcom. And anyway, look, you asked what am I most proud of? I don't really care about the word pride. I'm very proud of Upstart Crow and the fact that it was loved. I mean, not in the level that Blackadder is, but nothing's, by the time Upstart Crow came out, the BBC was pleased with 2 million when 10 years before they'd have wanted 10 million. So we got the 2 million and they were thrilled. And Upstart Crow was a labour of love, and making friends with David and discovering David as a dear friend and colleague felt like meeting Rick or Ro, so it was just a fantastic late life. My wife called that period the Benaissance. And
that's nice.
And And
when Upstart Crow came out, were you, because of The Right Way, were you anxious about that, or did you see it as a free hit because you didn't know you were ever going to do that?
You're always a bit anxious, but I really don't, and I'm sure you're the same. You can't be thinking, how's it going to go? You've just got to do it.
Well, it's not healthy to.
Yeah. I'm very good at getting in the bar and not thinking about it anymore. And, I love a drink, and that's always helpful. Well, not for everyone, but for me, I'm an evangelist. If it's a problem, I always say, it's not how much you drink, it's what booze does to you. if you drink, 7 pints a night, but you pay your tax, you don't get in fights, and you get up and work the next day, then you haven't got a problem. I mean, you might die a bit younger, but so the fuck what?
Yeah.
But if you drink a teaspoon of sherry and you go out and punch a policeman and you can't give up that teaspoon, you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about what it does to you. And I've always been a very benign drinker. I don't drink every night anymore. I did for 30 years, but I don't anymore. But I love it still, and I hope to die, with a glass of champagne or a nice ready man. But was I worried about Upstart Crow? No, I never worry about, because I know that I've had success and I've had failure, and in the end, I'm with Kipling. You really do have to meet triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. And I mean, that has to be about the best piece of advice you could give to anyone, but certainly an artist.
We've got a question from my mother now on voice note. I say this every time. I don't know what this question is.
Oh.
So let's see.
Hi, Ben. This is Romesh's mom. Hi. You worked so hard and you have had so much success. What keeps you motivated to keep working when you could retire now? Have a lovely day. Love to meet you one day. Take care.
Oh, what a delightful
It's a lovely
lady.
question. I mean, she's suggesting you retire. But
No, she. I mean, that's the spin of a classically cynical millennial. I'm thinking, or are you a late Z? No, you're a millie, aren't you?
no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm pre.
You're an
I'm
X.
Yeah.
You're
I'm an
X.
I'm
Only
X,
the
yeah.
forgotten generation, the ones nobody cares about. Yes, they're coming in their own now, because they're going to be the enemy soon, because my lot are dying fast. I mean, there's no one in my family between me. Well, my brothers and sister are older, but yeah. Well, look, what a lovely question from your mum, and so charmingly put. And I hope we do meet. Maybe, because I know you do a show together. Maybe
we do.
Maybe I can get
I mean,
on
it was
that
easily
one.
achievable. She could have come here today.
Yeah, maybe I could get on that one. Look, I've always had an ongoing compelling, as I say. I don't consider it to be driven. I consider it to be inspired. But I love to write comedy, and that's what keeps me going. Yes, I don't really know what retirement means for an artist. If you're fortunate enough, and I am an artist and popular, whatever, it sounds a bit highfalutin for a knobgag merchant from way back, but I don't think there is such a thing as retirement, because I would have written, if I had never made a success of life, I would have tried to, submit articles to the local paper or something. I don't know, made a fanzine, or, I'd always written plays for Amdram, whatever, which is what I did when I was young, and I'd still do it. And I think if you paint, you're always going to paint. Maybe people aren't going to buy it anymore, but and maybe people won't buy my stuff. I certainly don't sell as big houses as I used to. Audience still comes to see me, but nothing like they did in the late 80s when I was kind of very, very hip for a while. So yeah, I mean, what is it that keeps me going? It's a genuine delight in the thing I've been able to spend my life doing. There is no greater good fortune than your hobby becoming your. I mean, that's your hobby. If your hobby's your job, it's a vocation, isn't it? That's what they say. And comedy has been my vocation. Theatre arts, theatre and TV arts. I mean, name your degree course. Are my vocation, and I've been lucky to spend my life in it and earn a living doing it, and yes, a good enough living to be able to stop. And I'm certainly not as the world is comprehensively failing to beat a path to my door at present, because, I'm old. I'm an old bloke. And, even if a commissioner wanted to give me a show on telly, they'd have to think very, very hard, and rightly so, because there's 3 generations of people wanting those breaks, wanting those chances. And I had, my God, more than my fair share. So... But I won't stop writing. I mean, I'd be very surprised if I got another sitcom, but you never know. But that doesn't stop me, pottering about and or going back on the road.
We Will Rock You, one of the most successful musicals of all time.
Yeah, I mean, not in the level of very, very, very successful musical. Not entirely. I never really cracked it in the States, but a big success. Great.
You
success.
described that as that We Will Rock You, the whole thing around that, as one of the most intense periods of your professional life.
Yeah, it was.
What was that like to be putting that together? We could have talked about this without, we haven't talked about your novels and now your musicals. I mean, it's incredible the range of stuff that you've done. But We Will Rock You, how did that come about and how did that end up being so intense?
Well, fantastic good fortune. I mean, they say you make your own luck. And clearly, I earned a shot at some of the things I'd done because, I'd done some work that had worked. But that doesn't stop me being super aware of my good fortune, because I audition people when I'm directing or whatever, and I am aware of how, it's a cliche, but how much talent is out there. There isn't enough work for the amount of talent, and considering some of the people getting the work have no talent, that makes it even worse for the talented people. So I am aware
Long may that continue.
There's a lot of writers who would love to get them and deserve it, and it all sounds like virtue signaling cliche, but it's bloody true. So although I know I am good at what I do, I'm not the only one who's good at what I do, and I've had a lot of luck. And one bit of luck was Phil, I mentioned Phil McIntyre and Paul Roberts, who were kind of my sort of agent, promotion company. One day, it was a lovely little ploy. One day, Paul Roberts, he's an old one from Preston, he rang me up and said, "Ben, I can't believe it, I got such amazing news. Queen want you to write a musical with their best hits." I said, bloody hell. He said, "Do you want to meet her?" I said, "Yes, of course I want to meet her. I mean, this is Queen. This is the second most significant band that ever was. I mean, clearly, there's the Beatles, and then you take your choice, and for me, it's Queen. And I love all rock and pop and lots of it, and there's a tight race, but yeah, Queen, fuck me. And so yeah, anyway, turned out he then phoned Jim Beach, Queen's manager, the bloke Tom Hollander plays in the movie, and said, "Now, Mr. Beach, I wondered if you ever thought of making a musical." I said, I said, "Well, if he ever were, we look after Ben Elton, and he'd look, and so those two, so I'll meet him, I didn't meet the boy, well, I say the boys, they're older than me, but I didn't meet the band at that point. So, Paul sort of tricked me, because I'd have gone, if he'd said, "Look, I pitched you to Queen," I'd have gone, "Really?" As if that's going to happen. But he said, "No, they really want to meet you," and of course they did. But anyway, so Jim did beat me, and it was just a bit of good fortune because they had been working. Jim particularly been working on a Queen musical, but they've been doing it about Freddie's life, and it was a very serious musical, a lot about AIDS. The end of the musical is him dying. They'd done a workshop in New York with Robert De Niro, who was, why wouldn't he be a big Queen fan? I mean, he's a boomer like me. And Brian and Roger had gone over. They're the active members of the band. Of course, Freddie's gone, and John don't really get out much, but he keeps an eye on it, but you don't see much of him. I've only met him once. Very nice. We had a nice drink together. Brian and Roger had said they don't want it, it's not, we want something fun, they said. If we're going to do a Queen musical, we want something fun and exuberant like we are, like Freddie was. We don't. So, luckily, at that point, Paul had pitched a comedian. So the first thing they asked, Blackadder and Young, I had some, that's quite interesting. I mean, British rock stars are quite interested. I mean, I got to know the Beatles, as you know, if you read the book, and I nearly wrote a Bee Gees, had a lovely time with Sabari, and so it's a Rod. My body of work coming at the time it did, was good for rock stars. The Young Ones was on every tour bus, I'm known in the rock world, which is great for me because I love rock and pop more than anything. I married a bass player, and it's special to me. That's my love is rock and pop. So the first thing Jim asked me to do was, would you like to gag up what we've been working on already? The one about Freddie dying of AIDS, which is very, very serious, and about the politics of marginalisation, the gay community, or whatever. I said, I don't know. I said, look, I don't think that's where you should go with a Queen musical. Queen belongs to all of us. I've always been quite brave at fronting things up. And I mean, I'm talking to Queen's manager, and I said, look, this isn't for me. I don't think that's what you should do with the Queen. I don't think it should be about Freddie. It shouldn't be about the band. It should be the spirit of the band. You want a legend. You want something Arthurian, something grand and pompous and huge, but also with satirical edge and bite and a bit of snark in it. And he said, well, that's very good. He said, if you've got any ideas, get in touch. I was working on my Andrew Lloyd Webber musical at the time and directing my movie, Maybe Baby, with Hugh Laurie. So I was busy. But a year later, I came up with this idea for a sort of Matrix world where music is streamed directly to the consumer from the big corporate entertainment machine. They get it into a handheld device. They're sort of locked into it, mesmerized by it. This was written in 1999, can I tell you, long before the iPhone or indeed the internet. I mean, it was there, but yeah, it was pretty prescient as a piece of satire. Anyway, so that's how that came about. I pitched the idea to them. Brian and Roger loved it. It was sent to John because Queen don't do anything if there's not 4 votes. Jim Beach and the family have a vote, and then the 3 remaining. And John loved it too. And we were off. And it was wonderful and a very exciting time. And I wrote We Will Rock You. And I went away. I spent a lot of my life in Australia because my wife's Australian. So I went away, and the director was doing it at the Dominion Theatre, and I came back for the dress rehearsal. Very, very excited. Completely not involved. I wasn't directing, and asked nothing to do with me. I was the writer. And in the end, what emerged was I had to kind of take over, and I ended up directing the production, and it was a very, very, very tough time. But we did get it on, and we got it on to where it's getting standing ovations, and people are loving it. And it was another of those real heavy slaggings. I mean, the press night, it was a joyful, joyful night, rock and roll, dancing in the aisles. And then the next morning was one of those. It was like The Right Way. I mean, it just a comprehensive, the Daily Mirror said, I should be shot. I got most of it. They all said they kind of hate Queen because Queen was people don't remember, Queen were going through a bit of a, in the turn of the century, Freddie's gone and they're just a bunch of long-haired has-beens or whatever. I mean, the music was still there, but, it was a bit of a dip. Now it seems impossible to imagine that Queen weren't the all-conquering, iconic cultural colossus that they are. But it wasn't like that around that time. And there was a lot of, the Daily, again, I didn't read, I was quoted to me. In fact, Robert De Niro quoted it to the Telegraph said, I've got 1,000 CDs in my collection and I'm proud to say not one of them is by Queen. So, well, why are you fucking reviewing a Queen? Would I go and see an opera and try and review it? Would I go to commentate a football match? I don't know anything about football. It was amazing that there was this kind of pride in, Queen, yes. But and they all called it, Freddie Mercury's band. And Freddie, all of them said Freddie would be revolving in his grave. They all suddenly know Freddie, unlike Brian and Roger and Jim and his family. Freddie's mum wrote to us after the reviews, which were catastrophic. We were going to close in a week. Everyone was going to be out of work. It was horrendous. Our business was cut in half. We'd had this huge first night. Normally, that's your best box office day ever, particularly if you've got not just Robert De Niro, but Noddy Holder from Slade at your opening night. And that for me was really something special. And it was a big opening night. But our box office died the next day because it was a real, like Radio 4, do not give them your money, time out, don't give them. It was heavy. I don't know why. I saw resentment of success. I don't know what it was. And I got it particularly. As I say, the Daily Mirror said I should be shot. And so we'd got it on against some very difficult circumstances. And then it was sort of looked like it was going to be killed at birth. But we kept working and kept working. Queen played the Jubilee. Her Madge stepped up and gave us a bit of publicity. One Queen looking after another, so to speak. And Brian played on the roof, and he played live. Imagine that. He played live. I mean, you watch it and imagine he's doing that live with earphones and a band, the entire band of the Coldstream Guards, like 200 metres below him. And I kept working on it, and eventually it became this great hit. But for a year, people think it was an instant. For a year, we had what's called the curtaining, which is what you do with a big auditorium that isn't full. You basically drape half of it. So the audience walk in, there's huge stalls, and there's like empty seats, and there's this black wall. It's made of cloth, and you walk all the way down, and you go through this wall, and then you're into the half auditorium. And we had the curtain in for a year. We didn't even have the circle open. But there was, it was a hard slog. It was a very difficult slog. But well, the morning after we got the reviews, Jim Beach read it. 100 people were assembled. I mean, obviously, everyone had a year's work. People had got their mortgage. It was devastating. And that theatre would have been empty for a year. They wouldn't have been able to fill it with anything else. In fact, until Devil Wears Prada, they didn't really get another hit. And And he read the review from the NME, which is the classic sort of we know better than the fans sort of thing. You know, I preferred their earlier work kind of thing. And he read it, the review of News of the World, the Queen album from 78, said, upon this appalling egregious, insult of an album, amongst 12 appalling tracks, 2 stand up as being worthless and without merit. These are, we are the champions and we will rock you. And I'm not saying critics are wrong, but then they often are. And that's the thing. They make it as a statement. And he read it out, but it was small comfort at the time. But I think the problem is that when something appeals directly to that, something like Yesterday by the sublime genius, the gift to the 20th century that is Paul McCartney. And for years he was sneered at because he wasn't rude to people and he didn't, John Lennon was mean and nasty and he wrote, but obviously they were both geniuses together and apart. And they both gave a gift to human. Their contributions, the sum of human happiness, is incalculable, together and apart, but particularly together. But Paul got it in the neck because he's a nice guy, and he writes. Sometimes he just writes something so sweet, it defies definition, and so you get somebody. Julie Birch was sort of, talked about the only thing worse than Imagine is Yesterday. It's like, oh, come on. But something like Yesterday is so perfect, and he wrote it. He dreamt it, I believe, and I think if something defies criticism, it is difficult if you are a critic. What are you going to say about Yesterday other than it's simply sublime, or you could say it's kind of cheesy and obvious. You know what I mean? And I think Queen got a lot of that because some people think because something is deeply loved by people who are uncritical in general, that must make it cheesy and somehow worthless. I am an evangelist for good popular art. Not all popular art is good, but not all literary art or high art is good either. Quite the opposite. And if popular art is genuinely popular, it probably is good art. If you want to see what critics will be lauding in terms of pop music, look at what was 20 years ahead. Because something like Wham, I remember Wham being sneered at, sublime pop music. Come on, Wake Me Up Before You Go. It's a perfect pop song, and yet they were cheesy, teeny bop, Thank goodness the single, in a way, one of the very few gifts the internet's given. I mean, I would uninvent the internet if I had a split second. But one good thing about is that singles have become important again because people can cherry pick tracks. And although I do love a great album, to denigrate the single, that used to how it be, like Led Zeppelin, we don't do singles, we wouldn't go on top of the pops. Well, you're a great band, but Slade did singles, and so everyone thinks they're just somehow less. Anyway, we've got a long way from wherever it was we started, so I don't quite know.
It was a hell of a journey.
Yeah, I certainly haven't answered anything.
No, but, you have. Okay, so this game is called Misquoted. I'm very excited for you to play it. It's misquoted. I'm going to give you 5 quotes. Some of them you said, some of them you didn't.
Okay. All right.
All you've got to do is tell me whether you did or you didn't.
So you're saying don't go off on one for 20 minutes?
No.
I don't.
No, you can go on as long as you like. We've got an edit. Okay, so...
You keep saying that. You're supposed to say we love it. It's
we
Jules.
love it. No, we love it. We do love it.
I do talk a bit too much.
No, we do love it. We do love it. Okay, here's your first one. Good luck to you. I think I would have been a better writer if I hadn't been so restless. Did you say that or not?
Yeah, it certainly, I don't think it's very elegantly put, but I think it definitely sums up a kind of feeling that sometimes I've undermined my work by rushing and thinking of the next thing. Not that I don't work hard, I do, but yeah, I think I probably might have said that.
You did say that.
Oh, good.
To the Times in 2025. Congratulations.
Right. So I should remember that.
Yeah.
Things are going. Yeah.
Okay, here's your second one. You're 1 for 1. Congratulations.
Okay.
Does it feel good?
I'm indifferent.
Okay. Thank you for being honest. Okay, here's your next one. As cunning as a fox, who's just been appointed Professor of Advanced Strategic Cunning at Oxford University.
Well, if it is genuine, it's me and Richard, no question of that, because it's certainly Blackadder. It might be a sort of cod one, because I've spent a life saying, we invented this trope, which, a couple of actors have kind of claimed credit for, but the thing of you're as small as a very small thing that got a degree in being small, So maybe it was a cod one, but I'm going to go for it. I don't remember Blackadder's lines. People quote them to me all the time. I'm going back for a bit of rap surprise tonight as Blackadder. I don't remember them, but I think it sounds quite good, and I'm going to claim it for me and Richard.
Okay, it's from Blackadder Goes Forth, but we added something to the line, and there's a reason.
That's cheating.
I know it is
You can't
cheating.
have a half quote. All right, I'll rewrote half of it then.
Okay, yeah, you did. Because we added advanced strategic. So the actual quote is, cunning as a fox has just been appointed Professor of Cunning at Oxford University. And the reason we did that is because...
You don't want to have to pay us anything or something like that?
Correct. We don't have to clear it. We don't have to fair deal it.
Yeah.
No, it's because you sort of famously agonised over every word, didn't you? I mean,
we do, yeah. I think, as does Richard, yeah. We agonise, as did P.G. Woodhouse. That doesn't mean it takes a long time, because you can agonise quite quickly and vigorously, and I do it often. But yeah, and words are. I love words. To have a toolbox full of words, to have the English language to play with, is a joyful thing. And yeah, words mean everything to me.
Okay, you're 2 for 2 so far.
Okay, you're giving me that.
You're feeling less... Yeah, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
You're feeling less indifferent?
Well, you think I should... Well,
Yeah.
Get in.
Yeah.
Triumph and disaster, darling. I'm with Kipling on this.
All right, here's your next one. We are breeding a generation of big-thumbed hunchbacks.
Well, it's something a lot of people have sort of observed. You see sort of cartoons. It's certainly something I've definitely... I mean, if it's a false one, you're being clever and naughty, because you're kind of writing stuff... Look, honestly, I think it sounds quite like me. I'm going to claim it. It probably isn't, but yeah.
You did say that.
Oh, there you go.
2014.
Right.
In a radio interview. So well done for remembering that you might say something. Yeah. You've talked. I mean, you even talked about.
Do you think your listeners will, and indeed viewers, will get it? I mean, I'm sure they will.
Yeah, they'll get it. But I mean,
was an observation
particularly...
about the beginnings of mobile phones. I remember trying to write something for Rick, but in the years just before he died, everyone stroking their phones, stroking my phone. I wrote, and anyway, but he never got to do it because the BBC wouldn't have it. Anyway, there you go. Yeah.
But is that something you're particularly get particularly angry about?
Yeah, I think technology is now self-evidently a genuine existential threat to humanity. I mean, clearly with AI, but I felt it with the internet. The ability to they say a lie's gone around the world before the truth has put its running shoes on. Well, I mean, the internet around the world 27 times. I always knew it wasn't the great democracy. I used to have big fights with Stephen about this because, he was this evangelist. It's marvellous. It's going to be like a library in your pocket. And I always knew it was just going to be a fucking sewer, and... if you want it, you can always buy a book. You can look it up. And look, I know they're a good. I hate it. My kids hate me saying it because they have to live with it. There's no going back. I'm not a Luddite. I'm not trying to reinvent. I'm not going to smash the spinning internet. But I believe that the fact that there is no accountability or legislation to restrain the excesses of technology is an astonishing own goal on the part of the human race. If you have a drug that can literally mesmerize children and adults, but let's say kids, because that's what's important in the future. If you were to invent a drug that will take people's attention away, will distract them forever, there are such drugs and they are massively prescribed. We see that we must legislate against a drug that can steal childhood, but when it's fucking Steve Jobs going, we got a great new piece of fun tech here, I'm glad he's dead, because he can't keep inventing new versions of the iPhone with different plug sockets that we've got to buy a new plug for. I mean, it sounds cruel, but honestly, the AI, they admit it themselves. It's gonna put everyone out of work. I mean, I did talk about this on stage, but if a terrorist announced, we have developed a machine that will put humanity out of work within 10 years, should we choose to use it, MI5 and the SAS would be, we'd be after them. But because it's a bunch of tech bros in California, they're literally admitting this is going to destroy jobs. Oh, we're all going to have extra leisure time, are we? Oh, fucking, people like to earn their livings. People like to... I feel very strongly that unbridled, technological innovation is always seen as something that inevitably must be good. Oh, you'd like to be cold, would you? You'd like not to have a cure for your... Yeah, and we all know there's good stuff. But frankly, I think the balance has been tipped. I think technology should have stopped at the electronic type. In terms of communications, the electric typewriter, very nice. Maybe word processing, stop. No, I want to put a computer in my pocket that will propagate. They're buzzing around conspiracy theories on technology. This is what. People didn't land on the moon. They're pushing their conspiracy theories on technology, which is unimaginably beyond their imagination. I mean, Harry Potter would balk at a machine that you take a picture of your dick and send it round the world to everyone if you use enough big airdrop. This is mind-blowing. Was it? Asimov said, once when technology gets so sophisticated it's indistinguishable from magic. Well, clearly the iPhone is such a thing. Yeah. And yet people are idiots are using it to say, I don't believe in the moon landings. Well, don't believe in the phone either. It's so, yeah, I look, as I say, I had all I can say is I had this opinion when it was all bright and gleaming. But I do know kids have to use it, and it is great. Yes, you can. Some of them it's great as well. It's like cars, but you need to think about this shit. Look, there's pros and cons, but I am clear in my belief that AI is, and of course, how can you not use it? It's there. Oh, you're using SatNav, what are you, a hypocrite? I've got to, because you can't buy a map anymore. But yeah, I am very, very sad that technology has been allowed to infect our lives in such an unrestrained manner.
Sorry to bring it up. Okay.
Sorry, yeah. Was that to do with anything that we were doing, discussing?
Yeah. Big thumbed hunchback.
Oh, yeah. So, like we're going to be, yeah.
Okay, here's your next one. My life's loves are language and sparkly tailoring.
Definitely not me. I love language. I don't love sparkly tailoring. I don't love any tailoring. I'm an M&S man. In fact, I'm going to use this opportunity to say an idea I've had. Go on. I'd like to be an M&S model. I've never done an advert, but I've always loved M&S right back to when it was St. Michael's in the back of your pants, and I don't. These are anyway. All I'm saying is they take that, as venerable 50-year-olds. Now I'm at mid-60s, and all I'm saying is,
Yeah, Marks and Spencer's. If you could get in touch, I actually think you'd be a great shout for this.
Yeah, I think sort of old man, but still relatively in shape, and they do great. What I love about M&S is short leg. I mean, can you believe they do short leg, middle leg, and leg? That's incredible. I can go into M&S, pull on a pair of jeans, and it fits. I don't have to go, can you put some pins in and I'll come back tomorrow, which is so boring. You can't walk out of the shop. But M&S, short arm, short leg, that's who I was going to call if I did another tour, because I'm pushing this idea now. I was going to call the tour Short Arm, Short Leg, because that's what you can get in M&S, and they and you get long arm and long leg as well if you're taller and longer.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I actually think
so. I don't think I said that quote.
No, you didn't. You said language is my love to The Guardian in 2024.
Did I then say sparkly suits?
No.
Oh, right.
We added that.
Yeah, I would have. I can understand language is my love, but the sparkly suit bit, no. The sparkly suit was me. It was a conscious decision. I used to go on stage, and again, this weird thing in the 70s and early 80s, credibility was everything, selling out. Constantly, like you play a big theatre, sell out. What? You should be in the small clubs. There was no logic to it. But there was this idea that if you become, the left is cursed with this. I talk about it in the book. Is cursed with a hatred of success. That somehow there's something sort of grubby about doing well. It must mean that in some way you're no longer caring about anyone else. And because I've had it all my life, because I've been pretty successful, and I've always been fairly verbose about my social conscience, I suppose, and people might think, fuck you, but I say what I think, and you can think what you think. We used to go on stage, and everyone would go on stage like looking like they didn't care. Like you go in a t-shirt and jeans because you didn't want to be Tarby, you didn't want to be Bernard Manning, you didn't want to be one of those 70s suited glitteries, because that was like, that was the man, So, and incidentally, almost all those comics from the 70s were working class. Because actually working club, they don't celebrate. I mean, the class thing's changed a lot, but in those days, they don't celebrate looking poor. The whole idea was to try and not look poor. So, you had great fashion amongst working club kids, the mods, the Teds, it was only middle class kids like me that wanted to look like tramps, in our great coats and our t-shirts. But we were all middle class, or most of us were. Alexi wasn't. It was interesting, So there's this idea you went on stage, jeans and a T-shirt. Well, of course, you go on stage looking like a student, you're going to get treated like a student. Fuck off, you. I'm not going to use the C word because I personally fought a battle against that and I'm sticking with it. But, you'd hear a lot of that. And I thought, well, I'll get a suit. I'll try and look like a comic. But I want to admit, I'm not going to pretend I'm like sharp or sexy. I've never had any illusions about looking good or being cool. I know I'm not cool. I'm enthusiastic.
Sort of undermining this M&S pitch, if you don't mind me saying.
Maybe a bit, yeah. Well, maybe cut this because I really would like to do that. I mean, I need a But I've never been cool. Enthusiasm is not cool. So if you're an enthusiast, look at Paul McCartney, everybody went, it's rubbish. I don't even want to know I did it, So you go, yeah, it's the greatest thing I've ever done. Hey, that's not cool, even if you are a genius. So anyway, I decided I'd get a suit, but I'd make it sparkly so that everyone would know I wasn't pretending I was cool or anything. I was a farty. I'm celebrating my dickheadness by wearing a silly sparkly suit. And that's why I have no affection for tailoring or sparkliness.
Here's your last one. I have always policed my own work.
Sounds a sort of pompous thing to say, but you get interviewed and things. I mean, it's sort of... I think I possibly did say it, but I'm hoping I didn't.
Well, he did say it on the Louis Theroux podcast, but it was actually... It might make you feel better in terms of...
I was dying for a wee for about half an hour. Yeah, anyway,
actually, that bit of context helps. But when you're talking about cancel culture and how people always want you to talk about the fact that you can't say... I mean, I get asked this a lot. Comedians now, they want to always ask comedians, how do you feel about cancel culture and the fact you can't say what you used to? And it's obviously bollocks. But...
Every time. Yeah, so I would have said, look, I exercise self-censorship. That's my answer. I will say what I will stand in my truth, as young people say. And as my wife added, and you are up to your neck in it. I think I'm given a chance, I'd put it slightly better. But no, I don't censor myself on stage beyond my own personal morality. If you don't think something is actually funny and worthy of you, don't say it. And that's about. And if you're a racist, then that'll be your truth. But I believe I am a liberal conscious. I don't, as what is called, punch down. And so I feel I'm, as Shakespeare said, long before the term standing in your truth was said, armed, strong in honesty. I'm getting more pompous every moment.
Ben, it's been amazing to have you on, and I know I said to you we can edit. Your answer's been fantastic, so thank you very much. You're genuinely a legend. We try and get something viral from every guest. Is there anything that you can tell us that you've never said publicly before, I guess, is
That's so hard. I mean, I'm 66, man. I mean, there's very little I haven't said, Now I'm on the spot. I don't lie. I mean, one thing I can honestly say is I've never said anything in an interview or on a page that I didn't think was what I wanted to. I've never tried to manipulate anyone by, he wants to hear this or they want to hear that. And it's got me into trouble sometimes. It made me sound pious. I'm apparently sometimes, but I've said everything a lot over the years, and I don't think I do ever. I often find I've got more to say when I'm asked a question. But if you ask me, come on, what would you really like to say? I'd say I've been saying it all my life. I've been saying whatever it is I really want to say, I said it.
Yeah,
and all the time from the first word I wrote. And particularly with my stand-up. That's the thing about stand-up. It's such a beautiful art form, which I hated at first, but I came to love because it's subjective art. Most of my work is kind of objective. You're putting lines in people's mouths. You're writing a novel, which is a story, so you're coming at it from a lot of different directions. But the stand-up is the nitty-gritty of, again, a phrase often used, who I am. It's who I am.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing I've been dying to say because if I'm dying to say it, I say it. And too much.
There is one final thing that we'd like to give you the opportunity to say. M&S are big fans of the podcast. Is there anything you'd like to...
I'm not entirely well dressed for it. I could send you photos. My suits are M&S. I could show you. I think it's time they got some old rattled old alternative comics on. Never mind. Take that. Yes. If you need a model, I'm here.
Ben Elton, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Romesh Ranganathan Show. I've been told that some of you are watching this, enjoying it, wallowing in it, but you still haven't subscribed. That's mad behaviour. You're going to miss episodes. Very silly. So follow and subscribe to the Romesh Ranganathan Show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. We drop new episodes every Monday and Thursday. On Monday, I'm here with amazing guests talking about their career, what they're up to, having a laugh with them. And then on Thursdays, I'm joined by my mum, widely regarded as the audience's favourite Ranganathan. And we answer your questions, your stories, and your family dilemmas. So I'll see you on Thursday when I'm back here with my mum, Shanthi. Send your questions and stories to podcast@rangabee.com. Voice note or text on 07731 623 355. We genuinely love hearing from you, and there's a good chance you'll hear yourself on the show. See you next time.
Oh, shut up, Romesh.